How are you? I'm nervous. I'm real good all day, one-on-one, and then all of a sudden, it was about to be my time. And I got this thing, I got no pocket, so I got this thing shoved in my pants here, connected to this for the video, and all of a sudden it was real. I actually started getting real in the bathroom, and I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, you can do this, it's okay. And all that confidence I had all day long when I was looking at meeting everyone, talking to everyone, I'm gonna talk later, it was gone. It was gone. Because I am you. I'm just you. And you are me. And I'm shaking and I want to cry because my heart means that to a depth that you can't even imagine. My face is quivering. I can hardly form words with this mouth because when I'm here, ready to tell you everything I have to tell you, I'm so deep in my heart, and I'm gonna pull you so deeply in yours. You're probably gonna cry, I'm warning you right now. Ask Sanella, ask Kimberly, who came all the way from Pennsylvania to see me talk. You're probably gonna cry. So the first thing I wanna do, besides saying, hi, I'm Jodi Evans. And I say that loud and proud, because I am 49 years old, and I'm finally comfortable with who the hell I am. So I'm going to ask you to put your hand, I'm shaking so bad, it'll go away eventually. Put your hand in your heart, please. I invite you. I don't like to ever tell anyone what to do with their lives because we're done with that. I invite you to put your hand on your heart and close your eyes, and with me, take 3 deep breaths. And we're just going to pull ourselves into this moment right now. Because everything is fine in this moment. And everything is fine in every moment. My face is literally like twitching. This happened to me yesterday when I was on a conference call with some people. And it was my turn to talk. And I make videos, like I do lives on Facebook for like an hour and a half, like whatever. As soon as I'm put on the spot and I know that everybody's attention is on me, my whole face starts to contort and get uncomfortable. And that's why I do it. Because I've lived with depression and anxiety for a very, very long time. And I'm not gonna let that shut me up. And so that's why I'm here in Kansas today at this particular event, because it is the Free at Last Expo. And just like Sanella said, I'm not used to holding this thing like, just like Sanella said. You make a choice. You just make a choice. So by now you're like, okay, so who's this lady? What's your story? What's going on? I'm here to shake your snow globe. That's my favorite saying. Someone shook my snow globe. Because that's what they do, right? 1 minute, you're fine, you're calm, you think you're doing good, right? I was a good girl. I was a really, really good girl. I played by all the rules because if I was good enough, they might come home drunk and just go to bed. If I was good enough and I was quiet enough, I wouldn't be such the chaos, the crazy, maybe I could be over here untouched if I was just good enough. Maybe I could get love if I was just good enough. So I got so good at being a good girl. I followed all the rules. I did what they said. I got the grades. I got just good enough grades. Not too good. We don't want to get too much attention now. But I got good enough grades. I stayed out of trouble enough. I smoked when I was in high school, but I didn't drink. I didn't cut. I didn't do all those things that those other kids did. I just snuck behind the building and smoked a cigarette and got back to being a good girl. That was the extent of my rebel, right? I would wear my little preppy clothes to, look like a really good girl, because, those on TV, all the good girls were like rich girls that wore preppy clothes. So I'd wear preppy clothes, and I would sneak behind the building and have a cigarette with those kids in the leather and the denim. gonna have my cigarette with those kids, and then I get right back in line where I belong. Because we can't take too much chance, because we might get attention. That would be bad. So eventually I end up getting married way too young, having some really awesome kids. And we decide we're gonna move to Florida. We were in Chicago, born and raised in Chicago. Literally in O'Hare's flight path, which I gotta tell you guys, your bite-sized airport is adorable. Oh my God. Seriously, I come off the plane and I walk outside. They have what? They have Ubers. Oh yeah, we'll get to the Uber, okay. So, we just made a joke that we were shocked that you actually had Uber, no offense. But I had just come off a connecting flight. I had run through 3 concourses in O'Hare. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna get to Kansas. And I get on an even smaller plane than I flew from my sons in Indianapolis to Chicago. And I get on this little, metal cigar tube. And I'm like, okay, it's been a few years since I've flown, but I think I did one this small before. It's gonna be all right. And I fly to Kansas, and I get off the plane, and I wait for my one carry-on, because by the way, when you hear the rest of my story, I'm now a frugal minimalist, which happened totally on accident, because I live in 200 square feet, and that's what happens when you live in 200 square feet. So I get off the plane, and I wait for my one carry-on, because on these tiny cigar tube airplanes, they don't even bring the carry-ons in to the plane with you. And I get to the end, and I look out, and it's like really nice and small and fancy, like someone's living room. And I'm like, I think this is Kansas. And I came out, and then the bathroom was really nice. And I thought, is this really an airport, or is this like a thing before you get to the airport? And then all of a sudden I was on the curb, and I'm like, wait, 10 steps ago I just got off the plane. And I'm standing, and I literally bust out laughing out loud. And all these people start staring at me like, who's the crazy woman laughing out loud on the curb? And I'm like, oh my God, I think this is the whole airport. So naturally, I had to video the entire thing, any part they let me walk into to show my kids. I'm like, kids, you're not gonna believe this is the airport. Anyway, I digress, I'm sorry. So 4 kids, we're married, because I was a good girl. I got married, I had 4 kids. I realized later that I really liked having babies because it kept me busy and in denial. And I thank God that I had 4 of the most amazing humans. Like, I could die tomorrow, and y'all could just thank me right now. I say y'all, you can tell I'm really in North Carolina a lot these days. You can thank me right now because I put 4 amazing humans on this planet. You're welcome, I can die now, my work's done. So we moved to Florida in 1998. I'm 28 years old. And I realized over the next 3 years that we were in a box our whole lives. We knew the rules. Everybody told us what to do, and we did it. And suddenly we're in another state with 4 little kids, and we're supposed to be adults. How's that working? We have no support system here. Whose bright idea was this? Oh, mine. Oops. And so about 3 years after we got there, when I was 31, we got a divorce. It was my choice to end trying to save our marriage for 3 years after we moved. So technically, I divorced him. And then I got remarried way too fast. Because I was 31 and naive, and I didn't know how the real world works, and nobody told me you don't marry the rebound guy. Sorry. So I did that. And then 6 months after we got married, I had a complete hysterectomy. And I was so shocked, I never had time to even let it register. Because I got my mom telling me, my mom, who thought I was nuts for having 4 kids, didn't understand any of that, now says, thank God you had your 4 kids. Well, okay, but they're still ripping out a whole system in my body. And I had a husband who literally said to me, well, I don't know why you're so upset. It's not like they're going to sew a dick on you. You're still going to be a woman. Thanks for understanding. And so then I was at a job. Well, while I had the surgery, and while I was off for 6 weeks on medical, I made a rash decision to throw away my career at Disney World the first time and go to a less paying job because I thought the boss was really cool and I wanted to work for her again. And this time I'd be a manager. Except I didn't know that she was a narcissist, and exactly like some people from my family that I had moved to Florida to get away from. And so everyone in my life was kind of like, oh, it's been 6 weeks, you're healed from surgery. I was 31 years old. And 6 weeks and 6 months and newlywed. And I had 4 kids. I didn't even begin to process. They ripped the system out of my body. So, okay, I'm a good girl. I follow the rules. I'll go back to, life and go to work. And 10 months later, after, and it started gradually. You don't just wake up one day and have a breakdown, but there were nights when I would close the shop and I would be driving halfway home. Well, first it started 10 steps from the door. Did I lock the door? Did I not lock the door? Did I put the deposit in the slot? Okay, go back and check. Okay. Then you think you're all right, and a week later you're halfway home and you're getting off the highway to go back and make sure you lock the door to the store. And you don't know at the time that this is leading you down a path. I think the doctor called it ruminating. And your brain just starts getting really, really overwhelmed. And you can't, and then there was construction on the bridge for 27 over I-4, because I lived in Polk County and I was working in Orlando, and I would drive to my job and I would see, when they have construction on the roads and they have those big cement wall things that women are scared to drive next to. And I would look at it and I would think, well, if I could hit it just right, because I didn't want to die. I would never leave my children. That would be horrifying. What mother would voluntarily leave their children? But if I could hit it just right, where I wasn't dead, but I could be in the hospital for 3 months and not have to do anything, that would be okay. And eventually, I just, every day I drove to work and I had that thought when I was driving along that wall, how could I hit it just right? I can't leave them without a mother. And then I'd go home at night. Did I lock the store? Did I not lock the store? Did I put the deposit in the bank? Did I not put the deposit in the bank? Next day, how can I hit the wall? Next day, did I lock the door? And eventually one day I got to the store and I was vacuuming before we opened the store. And my friend was in the back doing whatever it was her role I had her doing. And I burst into tears and I said, I can't do this. I walked in the back, I handed her the vacuum, I said, I can't do this. And I just lost it. And I could not stop crying. And she didn't know what to do. And she called my husband and he picked me up. Remember now, this is the understanding, later to be found out, narcissist husband who said, oh, so what if you're having a hysterectomy? They're not going to sew a dick on you. So he's the compassionate man who picked me up, took me to the doctor the next day, and the doctor started asking me all these questions. And I thank God to this day for Ricardo Perez, MD, okay? Just saying. Because he heard me and he saw me and he said, you need some rest. You're a little overextended and we're gonna send you home. And you're gonna take these pills every day and you're gonna come back in 3 weeks and see me. And so I went home and I took the pill every day until I had to go back in 3 weeks. And during that 3 weeks, my husband did nothing but complain because now I wasn't bringing any money in, had no idea anything I was going through, did not care. My mother didn't understand and was freaking out that I was dying or something. And my compassionate narcissistic boss called me every day for the first week and said, when are you coming back? And I kept telling her the same answer. Well, I don't know. I have to go back after 3 weeks and he'll tell me what's next. And, oh, well, I can't hold your spot for you. You're going to have to come get your ID or give in your ID and get your stuff. So the first week after getting on, because apparently when you start antidepressants, I don't know how it is today, but back in 2003, when you start antidepressants, you have to take them for 6 months and they ramp you up to your dose and blah, blah, blah. So I took the pills for 13 years. The husband only lasted a couple more years, and then he found somebody else. I got some strength back and wasn't a victim anymore, and so he moved on. It wasn't until years later that I found out, then I learned about narcissism and all that. I was a classic codependent from so much trauma in my life. If I'm a good enough girl, they'll love me. If I'm good enough and I do what everybody expects, they'll love me. So eventually he left, and we needed money because he was 90% of our income because, foolishly, I let him run the show. I never made that mistake again. And the kids were on his insurance, and he was 90% of our income. So I went back to work, and I went back to Disney again. And in the beginning, I was just in security, making money, getting insurance, getting my head back together, trying to get enough out of food stamps and the food pantry to keep 4 kids fed. And about a year in, I went back into management. I had been in management the first time before I quit after the hysterectomy. And I was a manager in Disney hotels. And I was a single mom, raising kids, doing the best I can, keeping under the radar, worked overnight, never got to sleep because during the day I was there with my kids. At night I was running 3 hotels and just plugging away, being a good girl, paying the bills, keeping the kids okay. And then eventually the kids started getting older and going off to college and doing different things. Oh, 1 second. Do I have water? I'm getting dry, I can hardly talk. Do I have water? Oh, there, sorry, I'm getting really dry and I can't talk. I'm getting to the good part though, I promise. So, I went back into management, rolling along. Kids are getting older. Down to a 2-bedroom apartment with only the little 2. Now they're 30, 28, 26, and 22. This was in 2017, 2016. So I've got 2 left living at home. Second one's still kind of doing a little bit of bounce back between college and being a missionary in Paraguay and staying with me. So at one point I had a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 kids and everything we all own shoved in a 2-bedroom apartment. Starting to see the end of the tunnel. Second daughter. First one, oldest, moved with Dad after we were divorced, and he moved back to Indiana. And he moved with Dad, so he ended up being in college when Dad moved back to Florida, so now he's alone in Indiana. Second one went to college in Illinois because we were from Chicago. So 2 in 2 states already, right? So the little 2 are at home. Third child, girls in college, getting ready to leave and go off to university in the fall. I'm getting closer and closer and closer to that empty nest thing. And I had been a few years back, I think it was sometime after the second husband, and there was a third one in there too, but it took me about a year to figure out he was an alcoholic and cheating on me the entire time we were dating, engaged, and married, and so the third one's easy. You've been divorced twice, the third one's easy. That was a speed bump in the rearview mirror. So we're moving along somewhere between the second and third one, because I remember after the third one thinking I got the dream back. So I came up with the dream sometime between the second or third one. Had the 3 kids. The oldest was in Indiana with Dad, and I thought someday these kids are going to be big, and I need a dream. I need to figure out what I'm going to do with my life, because eventually they're all going to get out of the house and go, and I need a plan. And I remembered that when I was 8 years old, my aunt had a Winnebago bus. And I remember we would go from Chicago to Rockford for Christmas and Easter, and I would say, Aunt Dorothy, can I go play in the Winnebago? And I was the little kid. Everybody was older. I was the youngest grandchild. And so I was the one, I was like 8. Like, you get her out of our hair. Let her go play in her damn Winnebago, right? So every time we'd go to Aunt Dorothy's, I would go in the driveway, and I would go in the little house with wheels. And it had a little bed, and it had a little kitchen, and a little kitchen table, and it even had a couch. It was like a little Barbie house, but my size. It was so cool. And I remembered, you've always loved those Winnebagos. You've always loved RVs. Maybe that's what you should do. I was working like a dog. I was a single mom. I don't know if you're familiar with Disney hotels, but if you've ever heard of the All-Star Sports, Music, and Movies, I ran all 3 alone overnight. Came in at 11, all the other managers went home, every department, and I had the whole thing overnight for like 8 years. And before I got promoted. That's a nice story. We'll get there. I have no idea how long I've been talking. So I decide this is going to be my dream. Kids are going to leave. The ultimate idea is no permanent address. The ultimate freedom, right? How do those people do it? They sell everything and they get in one of these cute little things and they just go. How do they get their mail? Like, how does that work? And they're free. And like nobody knows where they are. Are you a mom? Are you a mother who can't pee without a toddler clinging to your leg? You don't take a shower until midnight when everyone's asleep? These RV people, nobody knows where they are. Oh my God, that's a dream, right? So that was my dream. So then 3 came along, I got a little sidetracked. I'm like, find out, he actually had a physical disability. Nobody wants to think anything bad about a guy with a disability, right? So he got away with murder until I figured it out and kicked him out, got back to my life and went, oh, you just got your RV dream back. It's gonna be okay. So now we're back to like 2016. I'm getting down to the last few kids, getting closer. Now it's getting serious. Now every January we're going to the Tampa RV show. We're laying in beds. We're sitting on toilets, shutting bathroom doors. Can you really wipe yourself if you lived in this full time? Can you get in the shower and pretend close the door? You got to do this, people. Seriously. People think, I want to get an RV. That sounds fun. I'm like, did you do the real research? I literally would go to shows. One time I was looking at Airstreams. Like I would own an Airstream. Anyway, there were these 4 guys. I still don't know if they were 2 couples or just 4 friends, but anyway, there were these 4 guys and we're looking at Airstreams. And I did the real research, right? And they're like, oh, this would be really fun if we did this and we did that. I said, guys, I want you to think about something. I've been researching these things for years. I'm getting closer. I'm almost down to 1 kid left in the house. I want you to think about this. You hook that baby up to your truck and you go out on the road and you've been camping and you're tired after like 3 days of hot dogs on a fire and you decide you're gonna go to town and eat some Mexican. Is that bathroom gonna accommodate you? That's the kind of research you need to do before you put that kind of money down on a trailer, I'm telling you, right? This is the kind of stuff I thought about in the middle of the night at work when everyone was asleep in the hotel. So the RV dream was serious. So second kid, missionary in Paraguay, bounces back a little bit, then gets her teaching job in Illinois. Wow, we're really there. I got this one in UNF in August. And I got this one about to move in a house with his friends. I am feeling the freedom. I'm going to work every night and I'm looking up my retirement fund, my 401k, my company pension, making plans. Doing the quotes 3 months out, 6 months out, 18 months out. When am I going to get the best bang for my buck? I'm not giving them a day more in my life than I absolutely have to. I am taking my money, I am buying that RV, and I'm hitting the road. And then it happened. The life-changing event. Why I am standing here right now. I need a drink of water. You might want to get your handkerchiefs out. Just saying. Because I'm even starting to shake already thinking about it. All right, so youngest, he's the baby, and we coddled him his whole life. And he suffers from depression just like mama. My boys have it worse than my girls. He moves into a house with a whole bunch of other people. I made the mistake of visiting them there once. It was scary. Scary. Apparently, furniture is not a thing, but hoarding is with his generation. It was frightening. Because they didn't just hoard like clean stuff. They hoarded like, oh, we don't do dishes, but we don't take them to the kitchen either. It was gross. And I'm like, okay, to each his own. He's out of my house. And I'm starting to do the calculations on the calendar. It's gonna be time. I can think about it. but it still didn't seem real. And then I knew why. He came home one day and he said, Mom, you know that nice girl I've been dating for 6 months? We got pregnant. We're going to have a baby. So naturally, being the loving mother that I am, it's fine. It's fine. Your bedroom's right there. I'll take care of both of you and the baby. And I watched my RV go driving down the road without me. And so they move into the apartment and we start making baby plans. And it's awesome. We even had a gender reveal and they had a name picked out. And it was really exciting. And really, I mean, babies are cute and they smell good. And so that RV will still be there when I'm older, right? We just need to get these kids good 5-7 years. They'll be on their way to a good life, and I'll be back to my dreams. No big deal. Except they weren't really getting their act together, and they weren't making plans. And they weren't getting jobs, and they weren't getting serious about pretty much anything. Because they were 2 children that had severe depression, trying to have a baby, feeling like their dreams were gone too. And so one day he came home and he said, Mom, we gotta talk. We're gonna give the baby up for adoption. 6 months down this track that we've all gotten excited and made names and gender reveals, I was starting to plan the shower with her mother. And now we're going to give this baby up for adoption, and I don't know how to do that. I don't know what to do. I had 4 kids. I don't know how to give one away. You know, you always say in your mind, well, they didn't kill it. Thank God they had the baby, right? They should have given it up for adoption. Have you ever lived through that? Have you ever been on the dad's side? Because we always hear the mom's story. And we always hear the story of the family that got the baby. And we never hear the story of his family and how they felt. And he had a mom. Every time you see a baby up for adoption and you think of that young couple, just please know that daddy had a mom who was ready to be a grandma. So it tore my family apart. Absolutely, positively tore my family apart. Some of them still are not okay 2 years later. Oh, and by the way, remember when I had that hysterectomy and that breakdown and I took antidepressants for 13 years? I made a decision early in 2016 that I was gonna get off those meds once and for all, because every time I was ready and I didn't need anxiety, depression medicine anymore, I was on Effexor, which was super hard with withdrawal. And so the doctor would be like, oh, 4 weeks, go down to this, go down to this, go down to this, go down to this, you're done, it's off, 4 weeks. Right. Do a little research, doctor, because I did, and it's one of the hardest antidepressants to ever remove yourself from in this lifetime. So I went to a naturopath doctor, and we got the idea together, me and this beautiful natural doctor who was also, an actual MD, that it was time-release capsules, and we were going to open these little capsules, and we were going to count how many little time-release balls were in there, and we were going to remove 5% every week. And in 20 weeks, I'll be off this medication, and it can happen. And that was February of 2016. And I actually took 13 months to wean myself off that medication safely, because every week, if I had a good week, we'd go down another 5%. And if I had a bad week, I say week because I had a boyfriend, we're getting to that part too. Every week, if I had a bad week, I wouldn't go back up on the meds, but I would stay where I was at. And so for 13 months, every week, we opened 14 capsules, counted those little white time-release balls, and I got off my medicine. And 1 month later, my son said, we're giving the baby up for adoption. And my family was broken in pieces. And I found myself one day on my porch, on my screen balcony, on my beautiful apartment in Florida, the only thing I miss about my old life. And I was on the phone screaming blue bloody murder at my baby boy that I had given birth to. And I realized in that moment that I had a choice to make. That either I could let this adoption thing ruin all of my relationships with all of my children and their relationships with each other, or I could decide to be a mother. And I could hold my son's hand and support him in his life, in his choices, in his decisions, because this was his path and not mine and not anyone else's. And it was time for somebody to effing see that. And so I did, because this mama's real good at manning up, right? That was the problem. Everybody said, why doesn't he just man up and have his baby? And I was the first person to realize that his manning up for his child was making the decision to give it what he knew he couldn't. And the minute mama gets on board, everybody else falls in line. And that's what happened. Except now, I had gotten promoted at Disney in January of 2016. So now I was like area manager level, like I was a leader of leaders. And I got moved to Port Orleans, and I was running both Port Orleans and all the other stuff that's on their property that nobody knows behind the scenes, that lands there because they're in the middle of property. And I was totally alone every night running that whole complex. And so I had it was a better title, better money, it was awesome, right? Except it was never my dream. Their kid's dad was the Disney person. I wanted to move to Florida because my grandparents retired when I was 7, and I was like, Florida's cool. So I was like, sure, I'll move to Florida. But I was never that Disney person. It was like you lived in Orlando, you needed a job, you needed insurance, you had kids, you went to freaking Disney and got a job. It's what you did, right? So that's how I ended up there all that time. Well, by the time you move up in any corporate job, it doesn't matter what the company is, the higher you move up, the more they own your life and have an expectation of your time and commitment. Well, remember back in the beginning of the talk, I'm a good girl. I do what I'm told. I follow the rules. So when they started canceling vacation 6 months after they approved it, okay. Oh, Jodi, we need okay. Hey, Jodi, okay. Just ignore me and leave me alone and let me do my job quietly over here. I'll keep getting you good guest letters. I'll keep racking up awards on my desk. Just leave me alone and let me do my job, because I got 4 kids at home and I'm freaking tired because I have been working overnight for 15 years. I was literally getting an award the morning I gave my notice. So now this baby comes, right? And we're giving it up. And she was late, so it's going to be induced. And I got to go to the hospital. And I got to sit with my son. And apparently every member of her family within the 5-county region. There were like 30 of them at the hospital. And there was me. And the reason for that is because they were giving it up for adoption to another member of her family. That was rough. Because now it feels like they're manipulating my son and stealing our baby. Because according to my other 3 children, that was our baby. Another thing I had to set them straight on. So I'm sitting at the hospital. Well, I had to call in, and I didn't call in sick unless someone was truly dying. And I called in to be at the hospital. And that was a problem when I had to call in the second day. Because they thought, oh, your son's having a baby. You can come to work and go back in the morning, which is what I would have done if my son was having a baby. I would have been at the hospital. I got to go to work. I'll be back in the morning. Keep me posted. But this was not that situation. This was mommy needs to hold her boy's hand because they're not even going to see the child when this is over. And somebody has to be there for baby boy. And so I called in 2 days in a row, and it was an issue. And between that and, and then another thing that happened, just in case the story isn't good enough, I got another piece of the puzzle. You don't necessarily go publicly on like Facebook about these kind of life-crushing, soul-crushing, horribly emotional events, right? And some people knew that we were going to have a baby, right? But then we didn't necessarily tell them that we weren't going to have a baby, even though there was a baby going to be born. It was weird. So I'm sitting in the hospital, and she's in 30 hours of labor. So we had plenty of time to deal with this. And a friend of a friend, I'm serious, my whole life is filled with you can't make this shit up moments, but this one takes the cake. A friend of a friend, who we sort of know each other, does a group text. I'm so excited. She has no idea where I'm at. She just sends this text out to 10 people. I am so excited. I'm at the hospital right now with my daughter, and we're 12 months into the labor and delivery of my first grandchild. And the other 8 people that also received that text throughout the next hour and a half replied, "Congratulations, Grandma. Congratulations, Grandma." And I'm getting these on my phone about every few minutes as everyone else in our group text is congratulating her while I'm sitting in another hospital not having a grandchild. You really want to think the universe has a sick sense of humor. It was the worst day of my life. And it was the best day of my life. Because forevermore, it put everything into proper perspective. Carson was born on July 10th, 2017, and so was I. On July 15th, I gave notice to Disney that I would be gone August 31st, and that's when the magic started to happen. I shit you not. I have a photograph on my phone. The day I left, I worked overnight. In the morning, they had a little surprise party, give me some gifts, have a cake. 2 of my coworkers walk me out the door to go to my car, and we step outside. And if you've ever been in Orlando or real touristy towns, there's like skywriting. Well, it was very common in Central Florida for there to be like Christian-based skywriting. And I walked out the door, and you can't make this shit up, I have photographs. It said trust in the sky, the very first thing I saw when I took a step out of my old life. And by the time I got to the car, they were starting to write another word, and they had gotten the J and the E. So Jodi Evans is walking away from her old life, looking up at the sky, and it says trust, J-E. You can't make that shit up. And Sanella has known me for a couple of years. I got about 100 of those. You can't make this shit up moments. So seriously, I took my retirement. It took a few weeks to go in. I bought a Ford F-250. It was 2017. I bought a 2006 Ford F-250. And a Kodiak Dutchman 24-foot travel trailer. And there is so much more story in that, but I've been talking a long time. How much?
A couple minutes.
Okay. All right. So I never know what part of the story to tell. More people are interested in the after part, but I always feel like the before part is the important part, because you can always catch up with me and I'll tell you all the cool shit that's happened since I left. But that's the important part. That's the important part. Because I want you to know that I have been to therapy and I have been on meds, and it saved my life. It was necessary. And then I also decided, like Sanella did, to take control of my life and my future and decide safely, with the doctor's help, to make changes and do it differently. And I was able to do that too. And I've been the good girl who followed all the rules. And I have learned in the last 2.5 years of falling on my face 27 times and crawling back up again. Now I live in my trailer on a gorgeous mountain in Cherokee, North Carolina, with creeks and trees, and I have a job, just enough job there to pay for my site, so I'm living there for free. It's amazing. Anything is possible. It's all possible. But I'm just you. I need you to understand that the point of the story is I am just like you. I'm 49 years old. I've got 4 kids. I've been divorced 3 times. I've had a nervous breakdown. I've been on meds. I've gone to therapy 4 different times in my life for 4 different things. Did I say 3 divorces? All kinds of stuff. I've got alcoholism on both sides of my family. Okay, so here's the happy ending, okay? So then I'll be done. So I quit the job. Everything went wrong that could possibly go because you don't know how to not be a good girl. And when you've lived with structure and routine and cultural conditioning your entire life, to suddenly be free sounds really awesome, but when it happens, you don't know what the hell to do with it. So you make every mistake you can possibly make just to make sure you remember that you're human, right? So I finally get to the mountain. I gave up my codependent relationship with my life partner of 5 years. He didn't get it for a few months, but eventually after 6 visits, he understood, we're done. He was 25 years younger. I probably wasn't real clear and let him come visit a few more times. My dog, I get to the mountain. I got there in March. My dog died in June of lymphoma. It was literally like my dog, I had a corgi. A corgi. Do you hear me? Not just any dog. I had a corgi. She died of lymphoma in June. There'll probably be a new one coming in my life next year. It was like even my dog said, Mom, it's time to go be alone and heal this codependency once and for all. And then a month later, I quit smoking after 35 years. And I checked the countdown on my phone, and I have been cigarette-free for 154 days. Thank you. So, seriously, all it takes. I'm here to be a human permission slip. You're allowed to have feelings and breakdowns, and you're allowed to pick yourself back up again, and you're allowed to keep starting over and over and over, and it doesn't matter. And if the people in your life don't get it, tell them goodbye and message me, and I will be your effing best friend until we get you where you want to be. And I am not kidding. I have nothing to give you but myself. I don't even have business cards because I don't need them. You will remember me. But I'm not kidding. Ask Sanella, ask Kelly, ask anyone who's ever met me. If you're serious, if you're going to do the work, and it's hard. You're going to face every demon you ever had. But if you want it, it's yours, and I can help you. I will be your friend, and I will hold your hand, and I will get you there because it's so worth it. I think that's enough for today.